Introduction. I wouldn't consider myself someone who spends every single moment at the gym, obsessed with the latest fitness trends or trying to attain some impossible ideal of physical perfection. That's just not my style. But I do make a conscious effort to stay in decent shape. I like to think of myself as someone who balances a healthy lifestyle without going overboard. I go for a couple of runs every week, sprinkle in some light strength training, and generally aim to take care of myself. It's not about competing with anyone or flaunting my physical prowess, it's about making sure I'm physically fit enough to enjoy life, feel good about myself, and not be hindered by health problems. I've always believed that maintaining a baseline level of fitness was sufficient to lead a fulfilling, healthy life. It wasn't about pushing myself to be extraordinary, just to be capable and healthy. But then there's Jay, my best friend. He's a whole different story. If you've ever met someone who was just naturally gifted at everything athletic, that's Jay. From the moment I met him in high school, I realized he was the guy who excelled at whatever physical challenge came his way. Whether it was basketball, football, or just running, Jay had this effortless ability to succeed without breaking a sweat. I can't remember a time when he wasn't in incredible shape. He didn't need to put in the hours of hard work like most people. His talent was natural, he didn't have to try. It just came to him. I, on the other hand, had to put in a lot more effort to get to where I was physically. But I always admired him for his ease, his seemingly effortless success. Despite our different approaches, Jay and I formed a bond. We became running partners. And it was during those runs that we built our friendship and our connection grew stronger. Our nightly runs became a staple in our friendship. After a long day at work or on a lazy weekend afternoon, we would lace up our running shoes, step out into the night, and hit the pavement. There was something special about running at night. It wasn't just about the exercise, it was about the entire experience. The cool air, the silence, the peace. There was something so calming about running at night, like the world was slowing down and allowing us to clear our heads. The street lights would cast long shadows, illuminating the road ahead of us. The quiet hum of the night would wrap around us like a blanket, offering a comforting sense of solitude. The streets would be nearly empty, and the only sounds would be our breathing, our feet hitting the pavement, and the occasional rustle of trees in the distance. Our routes would wind through the neighborhood, where familiar houses stood silent in the dark, or we'd take detours into nearby parks, where the trees whispered softly in the wind. It wasn't just exercise. It was a ritual. A time for us to unwind, to talk, to bond. We'd discuss everything, mundane daily occurrences or profound, philosophical thoughts. Running became an escape from the daily grind, a time to connect with each other and with ourselves. There was no grand reason we ran at night, it wasn't some calculated strategy. It wasn't that we thought we'd get the best workout. It wasn't about that at all. It was simply because, at night, the air was cooler, the world was quieter, and it offered a sense of comfort and stillness. The distractions of the day had faded, and it felt like the perfect time for us to get outside, stretch our legs, and clear our minds. But that particular night, this night felt different. I couldn't explain it at first. There was an unease that I couldn't put my finger on. From the moment we left my house and began our usual route, something felt off. The air was thicker than usual, almost oppressive. The night didn't feel calming, it felt like something was waiting. A sense of tension lingered in the air, like the world was holding its breath. It wasn't quite fear, but it was close. A nagging feeling that we were being watched crept up on me. And I could tell Jay felt it too. Neither of us said anything, but we both knew something wasn't quite right. We kept running, pushing ourselves, trying to ignore the unease that had settled over us, but it lingered like a shadow. The route. To understand why this night felt different, it's important to know a bit about where I live. Our neighborhood is somewhat isolated from the more bustling areas of town. On one side, there are a few apartment complexes and the usual sprawl of suburban housing. But as you move further in, you enter a more peaceful, secluded residential area. The houses are spread out, not too close together, giving everyone their space. It's a peaceful community, the kind of place where you can walk down the street without running into too many people. Beyond that, there's a dirt road that winds its way through a dense forest. The road is lined with tall grasses, wildflowers, and overgrown bushes, giving it an almost ethereal quality. During the day, it's a quiet, almost picturesque walk. But at night, it's a completely different world. The darkness makes it feel as though you've stepped into a place outside of time, where the only thing that matters is the sound of your footsteps and the whisper of the wind through the trees. For the most part, Jay and I stuck to our usual route around the neighborhood. It was familiar and comfortable, and there was no real reason to change it. But that night, something felt different. Jay suggested we try a new route, something unfamiliar, just for the sake of change. He pointed down a narrow side street that led into an alleyway, which in turn led into the forest. It wasn't a particularly challenging route, but it was different enough to break the monotony. We wouldn't get lost, but it offered us a sense of adventure. So, we agreed to try it. We didn't think anything would be wrong. It was just a simple detour. But looking back, I can't help but wonder if we were drawn into something we shouldn't have been. The strangeness. We were about halfway down the alley when I first noticed the footsteps. At first, I thought it was nothing, just the echo of our own feet or maybe another runner coming up behind us. But then the sounds seemed to match our pace too perfectly. No matter how fast or slow we ran, the footsteps behind us kept up, mirroring our movements exactly. If we sped up, the footsteps sped up. If we slowed down, they slowed down. It wasn't just the sound of footsteps. It was something more deliberate, more calculated. It wasn't random. I glanced at Jay, and the look on his face told me everything I needed to know. He heard it too. Neither of us said anything, but the silence between us spoke volumes. We didn't need to voice our discomfort. We both knew that something wasn't right. We kept running, trying to ignore the sound, trying to focus on our breathing, but the footsteps remained. It felt like something or someone was right behind us, never faltering, never getting too far away. The pace was steady and unnervingly precise. The more we ran, the closer it seemed to get. It wasn't just an echo or a coincidence. There was something or someone following us. And we couldn't shake the feeling that it wasn't just another runner. The moment of realization. When we reached the edge of the forest, the trees seemed even darker than before. Their branches twisted into the night sky, reaching out like dark, skeletal fingers. The road opened up slightly, giving us a brief moment of relief. I turned to look behind us, hoping to catch a glimpse of whoever or whatever was following us. But there was no one there. The road was empty. A brief, fleeting moment of relief washed over me. Maybe I was just imagining things. Maybe it was nothing at all. But as we continued our run, the feeling of being watched never went away. My eyes darted over my shoulder, searching the road for any sign of movement, but there was nothing. Even though the path ahead was clearer, the air felt heavy, as if something was lurking just beyond the trees, waiting. And then, it happened. I turned back once more, and that's when I saw it, a shadow darting quickly behind one of the trees. It was too fast for me to make out any details, but in that instant, a cold shiver ran down my spine. My heart began to race. Something wasn't right. I wasn't imagining it. There was something out there with us, and it wasn't human. Without thinking, I called out to Jay. He didn't understand at first, but the urgency in my voice was enough to make him realize something was wrong. We didn't slow down. We just kept running, but now every sound seemed amplified. Every rustling leaf, every snap of a twig, made me jump. I didn't want to believe it, but deep down, I knew. Something was following us. Something dark. The encounter. By the time we were deep into the dirt road, the oppressive feeling had intensified. The footsteps behind us had grown louder, more deliberate. We glanced back at the same time, and that's when we saw it standing in the middle of the road, perfectly still, was a figure. The figure was dressed entirely in black hoodie, pants, shoes, but there was something about the stillness of its presence that unnerved me. It didn't move. It just stood there, facing away from us, unmoving. Jay called out to the figure, but there was no response. The figure didn't flinch, didn't acknowledge us at all. A cold dread filled my chest. My skin crawled. I wanted to suggest that we turn around, but the words caught in my throat. And then, without warning, the figure slowly turned its head. That's when I saw its face. It was pale. Almost sickly. The skin looked unhealthy, as though it hadn't seen sunlight in years. But it wasn't the pale skin that froze me, it was the eyes. Those dark, hollow eyes. They were deep black, empty, like they could see straight through me. There was no emotion in them, just a cold, empty gaze. And then, it happened. The figure let out a laugh. Not a joyful laugh, not a chuckle, but a low, hollow sound that echoed through the night. It wasn't a laugh of amusement. It was dark. It was twisted. I grabbed Jay's arm, and without another word, we ran. We didn't look back. We couldn't. The chase. We ran faster than we ever had before. Every muscle in my body screamed for relief, but I ignored it. Our lungs burned like fire as we gasped for air, and the relentless pounding of our feet against the pavement felt like a constant reminder of the danger that pursued us. We pushed ourselves harder, trying to outrun the horror that was right behind us. The laughter followed us constant, unyielding, and eerily close. It wasn't just an echo anymore. No, it was as if the laughter was right there, hovering just behind us, waiting to consume us. Every footstep we took seemed to trigger another burst of laughter. It grew louder with every turn we made, every corner we sprinted around. It was not just a sound, not just a noise. It was a force, a malicious presence, closing in on us like a predator stalking its prey. We raced through the streets, weaving in and out of familiar alleyways, but the sound was unrelenting. It followed us without mercy, faster than we could run, always just a fraction of a second behind. I glanced over at Jay, but he was running too hard to look back. We didn't speak, there was no need for words. The urgency of the situation had rendered them unnecessary. All that mattered was escaping, but the more we tried to flee, the closer the laughter came. It was as though the air itself had thickened, making each stride feel heavier, each breath harder to take. My mind was a blur of panic. We had been here before, running these streets countless times. Yet, tonight, they felt completely foreign, as though they had turned into a labyrinth designed to trap us. I could feel my heart pounding in my chest, threatening to explode. It wasn't just the physical exertion, it was the terror, the crushing dread that something was right behind us, something that was not just following but hunting us. Finally, we reached my house, the familiar sight of my front door feeling like a beacon of hope in the midst of the chaos. With a final burst of energy, we slammed the door shut behind us, our chests heaving with exhaustion. But the moment we stepped inside, the sense of safety I had hoped for was nowhere to be found. The sound of our breath was the only thing that filled the silence, but even that seemed unnatural, as though the very air inside the house had changed. We collapsed onto the floor, drenched in sweat, gasping for air, but the nightmare didn't end there. In the quiet, the memories of the laughter, the face, and the oppressive feeling of being hunted returned in full force. It was as if they had never left. There were no words between us, there didn't need to be. We both knew. We both felt it, whatever had chased us that night, it wasn't something we could easily forget. We had escaped, but the fear, the anxiety, and the cold, hollow laugh stayed with us. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the pale face again, felt the icy gaze. That feeling of being watched, of being followed, never left. It lingered, growing stronger with each passing moment, as if whatever had been behind us was still out there, just waiting for the right time to strike again. Aftermath. The following days were different, everything felt different. Life carried on as usual, but there was a heaviness that both Jay and I shared. It wasn't just the usual weight of daily routine, it was the weight of knowing that something beyond our understanding had happened. We had encountered something that night, something real, something tangible. It wasn't just a figment of our imagination. We both knew that deep down, but neither of us wanted to admit it. Every time I closed my eyes, the vision of the pale face haunted me. I could still hear the laugh echoing in my mind. It was as if it was following me, lurking in the corners of my thoughts, waiting for a chance to emerge. Jay and I would talk, but it wasn't the same. There was an unspoken understanding between us, we were both dealing with the same fear, the same unease, but neither of us had the words to express it fully. We both agreed that we would never run at night again. The streets that had once been so familiar now felt alien, even hostile. The neighborhood that had once been a sanctuary now felt like a place to be avoided. Despite our attempts to return to normal life, there was no escaping the feeling that we were being watched, as if whatever had been following us hadn't given up yet. The unease never fully lifted. We couldn't shake the feeling that whatever it was out there, waiting for us. But even more than that, we couldn't shake the uncertainty. Had we imagined the entire thing? Was it all in our heads, born out of fear and adrenaline? Or had we really encountered something otherworldly? Neither of us could answer that question. And then came the day when Jay asked me a question that I wasn't prepared for. We were sitting in the park, as we had done countless times before, but today there was a distance between us, an invisible wall. Jay's voice broke the silence. "Do you still think about that night?" His words were quiet, but they hit me like a thunderclap. The question was unexpected, and yet, in some way, it had been lingering between us all along. "I thought it was just me," I replied, my voice barely above a whisper. "No," he said, his voice distant, almost like he wasn't speaking to me at all. "I keep hearing that laugh. It's like it's following me." The words sent a chill down my spine. It wasn't just me. Jay was hearing it too. The laugh, the sound that had haunted me for days, was now following him as well. It wasn't a coincidence. It wasn't just in our heads. The laughter, whatever it was real. And it was waiting for us to return. The search for answers. The need to understand what had happened consumed me. I couldn't move on, not with the unanswered questions still hanging in the air. Something had happened that night, something beyond explanation. I spent hours online, poring over local legends, searching through old news stories, and reading forums for any clue that might explain what had happened to us. The more I searched, the colder I felt. I found stories old, faded stories of disappearances near the woods where we had run. People had gone missing, some of them never to be seen again. Others had come back, but they were never the same. There were whispers of an abandoned house in the woods, a place that had been left behind when its inhabitants disappeared without a trace. Could the figure we had seen that night have been connected to this house? Could it have been one of those lost souls, trapped in the forest? My search led me to a name, Lily Forsyth. She was the last person to live in the abandoned house before she vanished, along with her entire family. There were rumors that something dark, something evil, had taken them, that the forest itself had claimed them. The more I read, the more I couldn't shake the feeling that whatever had chased us that night had something to do with Lily's disappearance. There was a connection, something hidden beneath the surface of the stories, waiting to be uncovered. The return. Despite everything, despite the fear that still gripped us, Jay and I knew we had to go back. We had to return to the place where it all began. We needed answers. Armed with nothing but flashlights and our own sense of determination, we ventured back into the woods. The atmosphere was suffocating, thick with an unnatural heaviness. The trees seemed to close in around us, their branches twisted and gnarled, like skeletal hands reaching out to grab us. The path ahead of us seemed to stretch on forever, as if the forest itself were trying to trap us. When we finally reached the clearing, the very spot where we had seen the figure, my heart skipped a beat. There it was again, standing motionless at the far edge of the clearing, its form blending into the darkness. It was a shadow, indistinct, but its presence was undeniable. It didn't move. It didn't speak. It just stood there, watching us. We didn't need to say anything. There were no words that could explain what was happening. We turned around in unison and began walking back, not daring to look over our shoulders. We didn't run. There was no need to. The fear had solidified into something darker, something that we couldn't escape, no matter how fast we ran. But as we left the clearing, I couldn't shake the feeling that it was still watching us, waiting for the day when we would return. The open end. Weeks passed, and still, the question remained. What had we seen that night? Why did it feel like it was still waiting for us, even after we left? Whatever it was, it hadn't finished with us. It was still out there, watching, waiting. And the worst part? We both knew that someday, when we least expected it, it would return.